So when it comes to the Daredevil comic line, shocking is something that we pretty much take for granted, seeing as the man can do some utterly incredible acrobatics and has time and again astounded the world with his heroic feats. But sometimes Daredevil can shock the world in very different ways. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 Daredevil moments that truly shocked the world. Number 10. Daredevil becomes the Beast. For a guy with the word devil literally in his name, Daredevil really doesn't turn evil as often as many other superheroes have, which actually makes it all the more interesting when he does, because it tends to be for far longer and to far more dramatic effect. A prime example of this would have to be in the Shadowlands series, which saw the Man Without Fear become possessed by an evil spirit named the Beast of the Hand, which naturally turned Daredevil into a villainous version of himself, complete with a Venom-esque costume change. This storyline would see Daredevil turn on his friends before eventually being saved by Iron Fist and his chi-bending sorcery. In one final shocking twist, however, fully escaping the Beast's clutches requires Murdock to kill himself, although naturally his death lasts all of a spectacular 9 pages. Number 9. The Purple Children. Like a tie-dye version of the kids from Stranger Things, the Purple Children are equal part fascinating and vaguely unnerving in just how powerful they are. Children born from the villain Purple Man and his terrible usage of his mind control powers, which are all too often used to make women sleep with him against their will, great. The Purple Children manage to be even more frightening than their dear old dad, with the tiny team managing to mind control their way across most of the city before Daredevil can even confront them. Of all of this, though, the most shocking fact has to be that due to their mind control powers, the kids manage to move through society pretty much undetected, meaning that theoretically there could be endless droves of wandering purple children roaming around the world, going completely unnoticed. Finding out about these secret indigo children is both a blessing and a curse, as they're both undeniably fascinating but also appear to have been totally wasted outside of the Daredevil franchise thus far. Number 8. Heather's suicide. There are precisely 2 constants when it comes to Matt Murdock's love life. 1, that he's not all that great with women that he's interested in, and 2, that this might be because women that he is interested in have a habit of dying tragically around him. Continuing this trend is perhaps the most shocking death of Matt's illustrious and notorious dating career, as Heather Glenn has just about the darkest end of all Daredevil's love interests, when a mix of fearing for her safety, struggling with an alcohol addiction, and realizing that not even Daredevil can protect her leads her to taking her own life. It's as shocking as it is sad, because Glenn is a particularly interesting character in terms of her run within the Marvel Universe, with her even briefly dating Iron Man until the pair realized that they made their respective alcohol habits even worse. Heather is by no means a perfect character, but she's one that maybe deserved a little bit more than dating 2 superheroes and then dying tragically to never be spoken of again. Number 7. Uni powers. The Captain Universe comic is pretty much wall-to-wall covered with completely surreal and shocking moments the whole way through, with Daredevil's feature in the comic being no exception to this rule. This is largely because within the comic, Daredevil is briefly made into Captain Universe, giving the uni powers that allow him to be briefly low-key omnipotent for a short while. These uni powers gave him enhanced strength, enhanced hearing, and enhanced vision, which means there's also a casual little surprise in that they allow him to finally see. That said, it is in exchange for having to use the name Captain Universe, so maybe it's not totally worth it. Daredevil is much cooler. While Daredevil having a brief stint as a weird god figure is shocking enough, the fact that he gets these powers in order to free a man from prison as Matt Murdock is nothing short of hilarious and completely unnecessary. Number 6. Daredevil paralyzes Bullseye. On the scale of heroic behavior, maiming a man and then leaving him crippled for the rest of his life is decidedly very low, and yet that is the exact case with Daredevil's treatment of Bullseye in the wake of the supervillain killing Elektra. Although it's totally reasonable for Daredevil to want to hurt Bullseye after this murder, there's something distinctively unheroic about letting somebody die just because you don't like them. And with Daredevil usually committing so hard to the whole idea of justice that he became a defense lawyer, it's especially shocking to see him willingly sign off at what is practically a selfish attempt at revenge. Now, technically paralyzing a guy by dropping him off some rooftops isn't murder, but it is at the very least attempted murder, and a pretty cowardly way to be responsible for murder, to say the least. Number 5. Swapping bodies with Dr. Doom. Predating the body swap plot of Freak You Friday by roughly 3 decades, Daredevil number 37 and 38 details the beautiful madness of a scenario in which Dr. Doom and Daredevil swap bodies. With the pair being so different, it's comic gold to see them both both adapt to being in the other's body as well as watch them learn about each other, especially the joy that is seeing Dr. Doom completely fail to realize that Daredevil is blind, despite literally being in Daredevil's body. It's kind of a silly plot that ends with Daredevil threatening to throw Latveria into war if Doom doesn't swap them back, but the playful cheesiness is also one of the best things about it. If you ever wanted to see what Freaky Friday would be like if it starred one of Marvel's greatest villains, this is truly your one and only chance to see it in full comic form. Number 4. Daredevil drives his wife insane. Continuing that dazzlingly depressing trend of Daredevil being the kiss of death for the women he becomes romantically involved with is the case of Mia Donovan, Murdoch's wife, who would be slowly driven insane by the mental stress that her husband's superhero antics would provide her. Now, blame can't be solely placed upon Daredevil's head for this one, as she actually ends up in such a fragile mental state due to a supervillain called Mr. Fear continually exposing her to fear gas during their weekly therapy sessions. Side note, the fact that a man named Mr. Fear can stay a licensed therapist is baffling. After this, she would end up being diagnosed with some severe mental conditions that would require her to stay in a medical facility in order to treat them, leaving Daredevil just as surprised as readers everywhere. Now, you'd naturally expect that this wouldn't be permanent, but as of right now, she is still canonically in the psychiatric facility to this day, which is a shock in of itself when you consider just how often deaths and breakdowns tend to last in the superhero universe usually. Number 3. Karen gets AIDS. It would be genuinely surprising if anyone wasn't shocked by the reveal that Daredevil's love interest, Karen Page, had become HIV positive from her drug use in the Guardian Devil storyline. While this story would have been perhaps poignant in the crisis surrounding the disease in the 80s, the comic was published in 1999, by which point it was less a storyline attempting to raise discussions about AIDS and was used more as a dramatic plot point, which naturally made many people feel uncomfortable due to its disingenuous nature. To add just a sprinkle more shock to the mix, it would later turn out that Mysterio had disguised himself as a doctor and told Karen about her HIV status, meaning that the whole thing was likely fabricated as part of an evil plan in the first bloody place, which somehow feels like it's going even too far for even this supervillain. Number 2. Daredevil becomes Kingpin. Many have quoted that Brian Bendis and Alex Maleev's time creating Daredevil as the absolute peak of the character's time in comics, and with moments like Daredevil becoming the Kingpin in them, it's pretty hard to argue. After Kingpin begins explicitly targeting Murdoch and his loved ones, Daredevil flies off into a rage, brutally beating the crime boss and then declaring himself as the new Kingpin of Hell's Kitchen. With Murdoch having dedicated so much time to doing things the right way, it was insanely surprising to see the man without fear give in to temptation and take a swan dive into becoming the new Kingpin. And perhaps the most surprising thing of all is how this affects the city itself, as Daredevil becoming a crime lord actually helps most of the city, with crime going down, money going into public services, and Murdoch being offered the position of mayor due to his positive impact on the city. While this doesn't last forever, as Matt is then attacked by roughly half of the criminal population of Hell's Kitchen at once in revenge, there's something so surreal about the fact that Daredevil's most successful gambit to prevent crime involved becoming a crime boss himself. And number 1, Daredevil reveals his own secret identity. Now, over the years, Daredevil has had his true identity outed to the public several times, by Kingpin, by Karen Page, even at one point by none other than Spider-Man. Cheers, mate. But of all of these outings, none was more shocking than the end of the 2011 to 2014 Daredevil run, where Matt Murdock reveals himself to be Daredevil under oath in a televised court scene. Now, it doesn't come out of nowhere, as throughout the series, Matt expresses a desire to potentially put his superhero career to bed, and revealing this secret is the one and only way to ensure the court understands how he knows the things he does. Yet it still comes as an absolute surprise, with countless fans shocked at the frank way that the superhero provides the world with his most dangerous secret. In a clever touch, our surprise is reflected in the comic by the countless superheroes, showing that the event is equally groundbreaking in the Marvel universe itself. While this choice would be unsurprisingly retconned, it was still a beautiful way to end that particular run of the series. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 Daredevil moments that shocked the world. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there, my friends. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.